There's a law in China that requires Chinese companies to cooperate actively with the intelligence services. So surely that applies to Huawei in China, doesn't it?
Well, all laws in China apply to all companies in China, so not just Huawei. So that's point number one. Secondly,
the company we're considering, why don't you just admit the fact that Huawei is obligated to cooperate with the Chinese intelligence services in China?
There are no laws in China that obligate us to work with the Chinese government on anything whatsoever. And we have looked at all of the Chinese laws. We have taken on board professors in Chinese law, and we've had their views validated via Clifford Chance in London, and there is no requirement on us or any other company to undertake what you're suggesting.
So the law of 2017 doesn't exist?
No, the laws do exist, but it's the scope and context of what those laws enable you to do.
That law states very clearly that Chinese organizations and individuals are required to cooperate with the Chinese intelligence services. And you're saying that Huawei isn't required to do that.
I'm saying our legal advice is that is not the case. That is not their interpretation, and it is not our interpretation.
When your company wrote to me, you focused on the fact that it didn't have extraterritorial effect. Julian is asking about inside China, and China's national intelligence law appears to be very clear on its requirements on individuals and organisations.
Well, I think it's fair to say, Chairman, many countries produce laws that are unclear, and we have had to go through a period of clarification with the Chinese government that have come out and made it quite clear that that is not the requirement on any company. We've had that validated via lawyers and revalidated again by Clifford Chance, and I believe there is no such obligation.
So you're saying that Article 14 of China's National Intelligence Law, passed in June 2017, empowering the agencies of the Chinese state to, and I quote, request the relevant organs, organizations and civilians to provide necessary support, assistance and cooperation to those intelligence agencies, does not apply to Huawei.
I'm saying that the interpretation of what that means, according to our legal advice, does not require Huawei to undertake anything that weakens Huawei's position in terms of security.
And that's entirely unbelievable.
David, lots to get at in this new poll. What does it tell us about where this race stands right now?
Well, it tells us, Alex, that this race stands in an entirely new place right now. Take a look at these top-line horse race numbers in Iowa, the critical first contest. You see Elizabeth Warren has been surging in Iowa. She's at 22% in this poll. Joe Biden has been fading a bit. He's at 20%. They are in a tier, a top tier to themselves. You see there Bernie Sanders at 11%, Pete Buttigieg at 9%, Harris at 6%, Booker and Klobuchar at 3% each. You see that Warren and Biden are in a tier to themselves, and there is no clear leader between them. We should note this is a margin of error, plus or minus 4%. The difference between them is well inside that. There is no clear leader, but what is clear is the direction these candidates are moving in. Look at where they were in June to where they are now, and the story of Warren's surge becomes that much clearer. In June, she was at 15%. She's up 7 points, Alex. She's at 22% now. Joe Biden down 3 points. Bernie Sanders down 5 points. Pete Buttigieg down 6 points. Kamala Harris holding steady and even there at 6%. But there is only one person there making substantial forward movement in Iowa, that first in the nation contest, and that is the Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren. We also ask folks about a different kind of score. We say, hey, your first choice or your second choice, or you're actively considering them, just to get a sense of the sort of menu of options and where the candidates stand in Democratic voters' mind. Take a look at Warren's score here. 71% of likely Iowa Democratic caucus goers say she is either their first or second choice, or they are actively considering her. Look at that compared to where she was in June. She was at 61%. Again, the only person on this chart, yes, Buttigieg and Harris have ticked up a bit, 3 points there. The only person making substantial upward movement on this score as well is Elizabeth Warren. Biden holding steady. Sanders seeing a bit of a dip. This is all telling us, Alex, that Elizabeth Warren is surging in that first state.
It is our new tropical storm forming Sunday morning. Tropical Storm Karen here with winds of 40 miles an hour. A very southern latitude as far as where this thing has developed here across the southern Windward Islands. It's moving west-northwest at 9 miles an hour. So let's talk about where this thing is going to go. In fact, tropical storm warnings are already in effect for Trinidad and Tobago and some of the islands here as well. That will likely continue to be expanded further to the north as the system moves in that direction. So we'll show you the track here as far as where Karen is going. All the while, look at the winds. It's going to encounter wind shear, right? Those upper level winds that disrupt the circulation, so we don't think that this is going to turn into a significant storm as far as wind along the Caribbean here. So 40-mile-an-hour winds, that will continue as it heads up towards Puerto Rico. So the position is less important when you're talking about a tropical storm, because I think it's just going to be a broad area of rain, not so much a center of destructive winds like you would get with a hurricane. So there's the track east of Puerto Rico by Wednesday, and then eventually emerging out into the Atlantic. Thereafter, a little bit of a curve to the west, and it's just way too early to talk about what this thing will eventually do once it does emerge out into the Atlantic. Some models taking it further west, some taking it north. As you can see here, excellent agreement towards the beginning. And then, as is typical, we go more spaghetti. Some models curving it, some taking it a little further north, and some curving it back out to sea. So keep checking back with us, and we'll keep you posted on the changes here. But this is what won't change. Very heavy rainfall. We're expecting anywhere from 2, potentially half a foot of rainfall over the next few days across the Lesser Antilles.